So Republican strategist Karl Rove warns that Donald Trump needs to regain control of that campaign narrative, saying the former president is clearly in a subordinate role compared to Vice President Harris. Rove made the argument during an interview on Fox News over the weekend, while outlining what both Harris and Trump need over the next few weeks to bolster their campaigns. Let's take a listen.
So this is what Harris has got to do between now and the end of the month. Introduce herself. We know she's the vice president, but how does she want to frame herself for the general election? She needs to figure out how she's going to go after Trump. She's got to pick a vice president, and that vice president has got to immediately say, you know what, she demonstrated the leadership that person would be capable of being president if something bad happened. And so that makes us feel better about her leadership abilities. She's got to have a convention that unifies the Democratic Party and has a positive impact on the American voter. And then the week after, I think, is going to be absolutely critical. The Democratic Convention starts on August 19th. And what that means is that they've got 1 week after that convention, 1 week and a couple of days before Labor Day. And that's going to be, I think, attitudes by Labor Day are going to be really important. So she needs to come blowing out of that convention in Chicago and showing big crowds and lots of enthusiasm. Trump, he has difficulties, too. He's got to frame Harris. He's got to find the right message to go after her, because as Lucas said, we've got 101 days as of today, and he's got to get back in control of the dialogue. He is clearly in a subordinate role here. He feels uncomfortable with it, I suspect, and he likes being in the guy who's setting the tempo of the campaign, and that's not happening. Think about this, Neil. 9 national polls since Joe Biden announced on the 19th that he's not running. If you take those 9 polls, it is Trump by 0.88. That's basically 0.9%, and that's after he gets the bump coming out of the convention that really showed a unity for the Republican ticket and the Republican Party. And so this is going to be a barn burner, and it's very much up for grabs. And the next 2 or 3 weeks are going to be critical for both camps.
Sam Stein, the whole premise of the Trump-Biden campaign, from the Trump campaign's perspective, was strength versus weakness. I can only imagine the reaction at Mar-a-Lago to the phrase subordinate role.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I need whiteboards. How many whiteboards does Carlo have? I mean, that was like 2 great penmanship. Yeah, very good penmanship, too. There was an interesting report that emerged yesterday, private fundraising remarks from J.D. Vance, where he acknowledged that Vice President Harris has essentially reset the race. The public posture from the Trump campaign is that nothing's changed. They're continuing their plan as is. They feel very confident in their path to victory. But for him to admit that privately really does illustrate the degree to which this race is now different. And I do agree with everyone else that the Trump campaign is, to a certain degree, flailing to try to find what the right counterpunch is here. I think we're going to get a real window into it in the next couple of days. I noticed reports this morning that the Trump campaign is out with a new ad. It's first for the Harris era as the Democratic nominee. It's going to focus on immigration, which is not a surprise, honestly. Immigration has been the bedrock issue for Trump since he emerged in 2016. It's probably the one issue he consistently has hammered over and over and over again. And on top of that, Harris was in charge of migration from the Northern Triangle early in the Biden administration. And so this, I think, is going to be the predominant focus, which portends a very nasty, ugly close of the campaign in which we will have a lot of anti-immigrant rhetoric that Trump will push forward. I think the Harris response is going to be, look, we took action, we being she and President Biden, with this executive action, and you tried to and effectively torpedoed a bipartisan deal to handle the border. It goes to show you how significant that executive action was that Biden took in the spring at neutralizing some of these attacks.
So, John Hammond, I think immigration clearly going to be front and center in this election. It is Harris's perhaps greatest vulnerability. Her team sort of acknowledges that privately. We also need to figure out how it's going to play in these battleground states. And I think I don't want to skip past that today, that Harris is going to be in Georgia, a state that the Biden team, a couple months back, even pre-debate, said might be slipping away. Yeah. They felt Arizona the same. North Carolina always felt like a little bit of a reach. They were really, particularly post-debate, they put it in a memo. They said basically our only path to win, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan. Yeah. Do we think now that map has really expanded for Harris?
Well, here are the things that I'll do my own Karl Rove thing. Although Karl is a world class trolling of Trump right there. Don't think that subordinate thing was a slip of the tongue by Karl Christian Rove. I think there's three things. They have 3 weeks before the convention starts, and if you include the convention week, which is key to introducing or reintroducing Kamala Harris to the American people, you have 4 weeks. A million things to do. You're starting. You're not. Luckily for them, they're not starting from a standing start. They're inheriting most of this Biden operation. There's some changes going on up at the top of it naturally, but they have 3 big things to do. First thing is they have to do something Donald Trump manifestly failed to do, which is to nail the VP selection. That's one. That's a huge thing. The second thing another thing they have to do is they have to get on the air, as we were just talking about, figuring out how they're going to try to in paid media, how they're in the battleground states, how they're going to try to define the candidate, and especially defend against some of the incoming that Republicans are going to have. But the third thing is your point, Jonathan, which is they have to reset the map. And there's no doubt that because of on the basis of what we just know from public data, that the surge in enthusiasm for her with non-white voters, particularly African Americans, and with young voters, suggests that she would be in a better position to compete in some of these Sun Belt states, whether it's North Carolina, Georgia, and Arizona, and Nevada. All of them could be more competitive for her than they were for Joe Biden. It's also the case that Biden's one remaining strength was with older white voters, and part of the reason why the blue wall looked like a good path for him, maybe the only path, was that he had this unusual degree of strength with seniors and white seniors in the Midwest. She may be less competitive in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin and Michigan than Joe Biden was. So there's a ton of research that Team K needs to get done in this period, and they've not. She's been vice president this entire time. The amount of research that a presidential campaign does on its vice president, an incumbent president, almost none. They have some idea, but compared to what you do for someone at the top of the ticket, where you know exactly how they're perceived by every important slice of the demographic, every part of the electorate, that does not exist. And they are racing out there right now to try to figure out what are her strengths, what are her weaknesses, what can be built on, what has to be defended against. Huge amount of stuff to do in a very, very, very short time.